Prepare for takeoff, please.
It's the Shipping Pod.
Hello and welcome to the Shipping Pod. My name is Tim Dooner and I am here with...
Ryan Dooley.
Hey Ryan, how's it going?
It's a good day. I gotta tell you, it's a good day.
It really is. This has been a long time coming. People who aren't listeners of the podcast, and that would be just about nobody because this is the first episode.
We are going to increase our listenership by a minimum of 100%. The second one person listens to this.
Oh, okay. Because if we started at zero, we would never get anywhere. We would just be in an infinite loop of nobody listening to us.
You're right. 100% of zero is still zero.
And eventually we would be giving it all up.
Indeed.
But what will we be giving up? What is the Shipping Pod, Ryan? What are we going to do here? We're going to cover the shipping industry, right?
Yes. We're both not captains, but on the captain track to being captains of industry in the shipping and transportation world. And I think my understanding of the Shipping Pod here is that we are going to discuss the industry, what we're doing in the industry, where we think the industry is going, and possibly, if we have time, what new people to the industry can contribute.
Yeah, that would always be a good one. And one of the reasons I like that one, and it's not really on my docket or itinerary, is to kind of go over the show, but you and I started in this business. I've been in it for 12 years now this year, and I know you've been in for quite some time as well, and I'll get to you in just a second. But when we came in, there weren't a ton of resources to go off of. There was no sort of industry-specific podcasts or anything. There were things like Connect that you and I are both involved in.
Indeed.
And that's kind of it. So one thing we would like this podcast to be is a resource to new people in the industry. It's not closed out just to people who have, multiple decades in the business. And with that, Ryan, one of the reasons I sort of tabbed you to come on here is kind of how the Shipping Pod came together is, we'll go back to Connect. I used to meet you, I would see you at the Connect events probably since, 2013?
Yeah, it's got to be 2012, 2013. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so one of the cargo symposiums over there, I'd met you and you saw me this great trick on how to scam drinks, actually.
It's an important technique that I highly endorse. I like to call it the stand by the door trick, where you just position yourself correctly at the entrance to the cocktail hour.
Sure.
And that way, all the people that are leaving that haven't used up their drink tickets are just looking to hand them off.
Yeah.
So you can just collect, and you can just sit there and have 30 or 40 free drinks in your hand.
Well, and then we teamed up, and I kind of added to your trick, but I said, you know what, we don't even have to wait for them to give us the badges back because there's already 2 drink tickets there to begin with.
Exactly.
So if you just go up to the unused badges, you can just start collecting drink tickets, right?
Of course. That's what I like to call ingenuity right there, sir.
I know, and is that a moral gray area? I gotta say, I don't think so because it's already paid for, right?
If you didn't, it's kind of like a tree falling in the woods thing.
Yeah.
If you didn't attend the conference, did your drink ticket get used?
Exactly. But it's paid for. They're prepaid tickets.
They're supposed to get drunk.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be used.
And we weren't reselling them. We didn't put them on eBay at 100% markup. You know, this wasn't the NES Classic or something, or a Hatchimal that we were hoarding. These were drink tickets.
This was personal use. This was to further our enjoyment of an already enjoyable experience.
It really was, and it helped form, I guess, a bond between the two of us.
A connect bond.
And well, when you talk about name tags too, there's something completely unavoidable. You're D-O-O-L-E-Y.
Indeed.
And I'm D-O-O-N-E-R.
It was destiny.
It was destiny. Whenever you go to a Connect thing, our badges would be right next to each other.
It was a little romantic. I reached for a badge, you reached for a badge, our fingers touched momentarily. It was a romantic thing, man.
Yeah, and you save money on vowels with all the O's in the names.
There you go.
If we were a Wheel of Fortune question, who are the two hosts of the shipping pod? There you go. You buy an O, you're covered. You're getting at least 4.
Yeah, you got to know what you got in that case.
But Ryan, let's go back to the beginning a little bit so people know, why are they listening to you? Why are you a host on this podcast? What do you bring to the table?
Sure.
I know that you started out at Maritime, right?
Actually, before that, so my history goes all the way back. I mean, I've been in the maritime industry quite literally since I was born. My father's a captain of a captain of a cable ship. Uncle's a captain of an oil tanker. Now he's a pilot. So, I mean, literally since I could walk, I've been walking on ships. So it seems almost like it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to end up in the business.
Sure.
I was fortunate. I got to go to the Federal Service Academy, the United States Merchant Marine Academy for a few years.
Yeah.
I ended up transferring to Mass Maritime. So that's where my actual transportation international business degree is from. So you are correct. I went to Mass Maritime, but I got the luxury of attending 2 maritime academies.
And just in case anyone listening isn't familiar with Mass Maritime, could you just give us a brief overview of what the school is?
Sure, absolutely. Now, Mass Maritime and Kings Point, both of them maritime schools, they both focus on training quote-unquote cadets to be members of the maritime transportation logistics field. In the, I don't want to say old days, but when I was going there, it was pretty much focused on the maritime transportation, but it's broadened itself to include logistics, which touches all aspects. So it's not just seagoing stuff. Mass Maritime and Kings Point, both, they graduate cadets that turn into maritime officers that go out and actually work on the vessels. They also graduate business, emergency management, facilities engineers that work shoreside. I mean, everybody that has to do with the different facets of transportation, logistics, supply chain management. Kind of, you name it, it is gearing people towards that.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great. No, I'm glad.
I gotta tell you, it was fantastic.
No, Ryan. Wait, so is this a 4-year school? Do you stay on campus?
Oh yeah, no, it's a 4-year accredited state university.
Okay.
And the Kings Point is actually a 4-year accredited Federal Service Academy, like Annapolis, West Point.
I thought that was an amusement park.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, it sounds
Isn't there a Kings Point, or is it King's Dominion?
I know there's a King Richard's Fair. There used to be a Rocky Point.
There is a King Richard's Fair. I'm actually dressed for it right now.
Exactly. You came in full Renaissance garb, and I appreciate that because that's what puts me in a transportation mode.
There is. No, you know what puts me in the I personally, I just came from my therapist to get my reps in.
There you go.
She was questioning the outfit, but this isn't a video podcast. I didn't have time to change, and I just said, you know what? Let's run with this. We've talked about it for so long. It's time to finally get our voices recorded.
Your whalebone corset is really what makes the outfit.
Well, speaking of it, too, you remember Whalen Park?
Yes.
Yeah, a whale of a time.
Of course. I got to tell you, that's a very it's an appropriately named slogan for the park itself. There.
Yeah.
I like it. I enjoy it immensely.
That's back, and then it crashed because you had like the Hartford Whalers, you had Whalen Park. Whaling was a big thing. It was a really big thing, and it had its heyday. Mm-hmm. But at some point, during the 90s, didn't they moved? Was that the 90s or was that 2000 that Whalen Park and the Hartford Whalers moved?
I want to say that was late 90s, right? I think it was.
That could have been late 90s.
Late 90s, I think.
We'll mark it down. Let's just say it's late 90s.
All right, I'm going to say 98 and a half.
You know what? And this is a good interlude, too. If you want to correct us on that one, you can reach us at theshippingpod@gmail.com or on Twitter at theshippingpod.
I got to tell you, just to kick it off, I'm going to send you an angry email, just claiming you should know this. You should walk in knowing about Whalen Park. So we will have your first angry email from me.
Your plan would have worked if you hadn't have told me. That would have been a good troll job. Though I would take that one.
There you go.
So, Mass Maritime, great time. You kind of went in there, and it seems like you're focused on getting into the industry, whether you knew it or not.
Yeah.
So where do you go from there?
So from Mass Maritime, when I graduated, Mass Maritime is located on the Cape Cod Canal, which, for anyone that doesn't know, one of the windiest, coldest. It is raw down there for a lot of the year. When I got out of there, I decided I wanted to go south. I was tired of shoveling driveways. I wanted to get out of here, go someplace warm. Stumbled my way down to Florida, fell kind of backwards into a fantastic job, and I started working as an assistant operations manager. The official title was the stevedoring assistant for a steamship line, Sea Star Line, which is a domestic Jones Act carrier, working from Jacksonville, Florida, down to Puerto Rico and the islands. And so I spent 4 or 5 years there as an operations, climbing the ladder there, ended up becoming the operations manager for Jacksonville, then also getting promoted up to open up a terminal in Philadelphia. And then, unfortunately, and I'm sure we'll end up talking about it on here eventually, is the crash in kind of 2008 and the economic problems that the industry had as a whole led to that company shutting down that operation, which put me slightly out of a job. I had the opportunity to go back to Florida, decided, let's go see how the other half lives, and that's how I got into sales. And so from there, I just kind of carried on into a sales role up here in Massachusetts, and the rest has been history. It's been shipping line, third-party logistics, shipping line, bouncing back and forth, just doing the sales thing.
And so you've moved there. You've been on ship side, you've been on NVOC side. So when you got back to Massachusetts, you jumped on with one of the bigger carriers, didn't you?
Yeah. When I first got back to Massachusetts, I worked for a little while with a small freight forwarder, Kentetsi World Express. It's a good place, great people, but then just through luck of the draw, a former classmate of mine was working for a recruiter who was looking for a person to be a local sales rep, an actual quote-unquote boots-on-the-ground sales rep for Hamburg Süd, which is one of the top 20 carriers. I mean, they're currently in the process of being bought out by other carriers right now, but at the time, they were looking for a boots-on-the-ground person, and they'd never had it before. And since I was new to the area but knew the business, I was from the area but was new to the business, they were kind of willing to take a chance on me. I got the nod from them after going through the interview process, which I was very fortunate to be provided, like I said, from just a friend of mine. So it's a kind of another nod towards networking. Is the only reason I ended up in this side of the business for as long as I did was because I happened to know people who were like, hey, let's give it a shot. And so I went with Hamburg Süd. We worked for 2 years with Hamburg Süd. It was kind of another rough time because if you recall back in that time, there was Hurricane Sandy. Then after that, there was a whole bunch of congestion issues and stuff like that. It was just problem after problem after problem. After 2 years, they decided instead of having boots on the ground, they'd rather work everyone out of their New York office and kind of condense costs, so to speak, and start splitting up roles. I had no interest in moving down to New Jersey, so rather than move to Morristown, I told them I would roll the dice, take my chances, and I totally lucked out. One of my good customers was Intrel Corporation, who does back office work for Ocean Spray, Gillette. I mean, huge, big name. They wanted to start up an MVOCC sales division. And so they knew me, I knew them. It was a natural progression, and they said, hey, come on board over here, show us what you can do. So got to jump in with those guys for a couple of years as well.
Yeah. And now you are currently...
And now I am the sales manager for Yang Ming. That is a major shipping line here, a Taiwanese-based carrier calling directly the Port of Boston. One of the 5 that calls the Port of Boston. So
yeah. That's a big, important one, especially if you are here in Boston. And I think we're going to touch on this, obviously, in almost every episode, but for sure, and probably the next one, is the new alliances for 2017.
Mm-hmm.
You guys at Yang Ming have shifted over, and just really briefly, what is the alliance? And I know "the" is capitalized, so I'm assuming it has to be some sort of acronym, right?
Oh, you are so sharp. This is why I endorsed you for shipping on LinkedIn. This is why. Exactly. It's those kind of astute observations.
You know, those don't come easy either.
No. You get the nod from someone on LinkedIn. That's good as gold, brother.
That's a big one.
Well, now, all kidding aside, so there's multiple alliances. We were formerly a member of the CKYG Alliance. That's the one that kind of got broken up, dissolved, for whatever you want to call it, with the Costco China shipping merger. So we are now entering into the alliance, but it's actually THE, the Transportation High Efficiency Alliance. But frankly, who's going to say that? The T, the H, the E are there. It's the alliance. So when you see that written, it's not a typo. It's an acronym. So it is the Transportation High Efficiency Alliance.
Got you. Because there's also... Isn't the other one has Alliance in the name too, right?
The Ocean Alliance.
Yeah.
So you have the Ocean Alliance, the Alliance.
Yeah, the. So you kind of jumped over them. It was kind of a smart move.
I got to tell you, I've always wanted somebody to just come out and be like, you know what? Just when people Google Alliance, I want to be like the A1 Alliance. Just so that you're the first one that pops up alphabetically.
Well, I almost did that on my own personal website. It turns out there's another Timothy Dooner out there. And back in the early 90s when the internet like sort of first came out and you could buy a domain, I owned TimothyDooner.com for years.
Awesome.
And then, but then I lapsed on it, and then this other Timothy, the bogus Timothy Dooner, he comes along and he snatches up my domain.
Evil Timothy Dooner.
So yeah, so I had to come back as the Timothy Dooner.
I like that, actually.
That's
I gotta tell you, I kind of like that. Power move.
Yeah.
Power move.
Yeah. He's just one of them, but I am the one.
That doppelganger Dooner needs to get out of here. If you're listening to this, Dooner, we will buy that domain name back. We will.
Well, as far as Timothy Dooners go, he's a big deal, too, because when you Google him, there's only two that come up, and it's me and this guy, and he's got a Presbyterian church.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oof, well.
A pious man.
I was going to say, I was like, man, I don't know if we can mess with that. That's
No, we might live and let live with the bogus Timothy Dooner.
I hope somewhere he's sitting there speaking to his congregation saying, the other Timothy Dooner's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
He's in the shipping industry.
Yeah.
He's an interesting guy.
He's actually the first 3 results on Google.
Jeez.
He's got to get his SEO up.
I don't know what SEO stands for, so I'm going to go with, yeah.
Search engine optimization, Ryan.
You know things that I have no concept of. That's good. I like that.
That's a good segue, too. So who am I? Why
exactly?
Why did I start the Shipping Pod? Why is Ryan Dooley a member of the Shipping Pod? Why is Tim Dooner a member of the Shipping Pod?
Well, let me kick in one here for you. Just to give the people a little bit of context, is that I do recall when you came up with, because this is your brainchild, when you came up with this, it was very interesting and it has a very noble cause to it. You came up with this almost as an educational tool. You came up with the original idea was to do instructional videos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a product of your former employer.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty interesting thing that you came up with there, and then the segue into and through discussion going into the idea of why not do a podcast for everyone? And it can be instructional for everyone, not just your current employer.
Sure. Well, yeah, you and I were sitting there at the Squires over in beautiful Hanover, Massachusetts, and I was telling you, at the time I was Director of Business Development for a company called Ocean Air. And when I first took the job with them, one of the things that I had noticed is that they had a podcast, but it hadn't been touched. They'd done one episode, which was, just like a test sampling back in August of 2015. I came over to them in August of 2015. I came over to them in 2016, and one of the things I talked about when I interviewed with them was reinvigorating the podcast. And as I was working with them, that was sort of one of my goals was to. And one of the reasons why is a lot of companies in the industry will have webinars and they'll have educational things, which is anything from shipping 101 to even more advanced stuff like the ACE portals and those kind of things. So I wanted to do it in a podcast format instead of a webinar format, so it was kind of accessible to everyone, and I thought that, the brand name and everything would sell that along. So I pitched it to the owner of the company, and he said, yeah, this is great, go for it. You have to talk to, Paul in marketing, he handles all that stuff, and, so I thought it'd be great. I pitched the idea and everything to him. Unfortunately, he wanted to go in his own direction with it. It's still out there. I don't know if
what direction did he want to go in?
It hasn't gone in any direction, so nothing really got recorded. But I was telling you sort of my frustration with this because I had thought about maybe trying another approach or giving a different pass, at him to get it moving, because we really just had to do a meeting. They already had the equipment at recording, and you had said to me, why don't you just do it yourself? Then it's portable. You don't have to worry about bringing it to an Ocean Air thing. It can be your own content. If it became big enough, you could always give it back to them. And I said, well, that's great, but I'm going to need you to do it with me, because you're going to be a motivator. And you know what? You're such a motivator that this was, only six months ago?
Yes.
But we are finally here. We're finally recording. We had to get some of this stuff set up. And I guess we jumped ahead. So the background here, why am I here? Why do I do this? I've been in this business for 12 years now. Prior to that, I worked in the music industry. That's my background. I didn't go to school for this, and I wasn't on a vision quest from my boating childhood like Ryan over here. Although my dad's in the business too, or he was in the business. He had actually brought shipping bonds for Roanoke Insurance over to Boston. So this kind of thing had always been in the background. But I started out I lived out in Hollywood. I'm from Massachusetts, but I lived out in Hollywood.
You are. You're the actual Sean P. Diddy Combs, aren't you?
No,
like that's actually who you are, and this is a complete alter ego thing.
It could be. It was a little bit before the auto-tune, but it was not before Puff Daddy. That's right. They had the Biggie, I'll be missing you. What was that? How does that go?
That's the Sting
Biggie
song.
went away.
I'm blanking on the. I know this song. I know it's the Sting song.
It was an ode to Biggie.
Yeah.
And then he stole the riff from Kashmir for his Godzilla song.
Oh yeah.
Remember that one?
Oh yeah. He's the Been Around the World one too, and so I mean,
yeah,
a lot of stuff. I got a lot of sampling.
He does. He had that record where he was just sampling everything. He was really putting it out there.
Oh, and maybe not to go wildly off topic, as we have, but. Maybe, since you are the real Puff Daddy, you could talk to your guy Mace, who later became a reverend, who could talk to the real Tim Dooner, and see if, through the religious contacts, he might be able to give you Tim Dooner back. And then you could actually be Tim Dooner again.
He could mediate that.
Yeah.
He could be like our usher. That would make perfect sense.
Perfect.
It's in the name.
Perfect.
It's all in a name. But, speaking of music, so I worked in the music industry, and, things like Napster come out, digital distribution, all those kind of things. I really like music, and I started becoming a little disillusioned with it. So I decided to move back to Boston. A company called FedEx Trade Networks. It was one of the first interviews I did when I got back here. I didn't even know what a customs broker was.
Those guys are huge, too.
FedEx Trade Networks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're a pretty big company. And they got there in an interesting way. They basically bought all of the small brokerage houses. So... FedEx Trade Networks, the one in Boston, just to take a little trip down memory lane for a little history, for the history buffs out there, it was a company called Tower. And before that, I believe that HarperCollins, and again, at the shipping pod or theshippingpod@gmail.com if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly
I hope
from
people
my
do call and
initiation,
correct you.
I really do. I want to get corrected because it means that you're out there, and it means that you care, and it means that you are 21 minutes into this thing. So that's a good sign.
That is a good sign.
But no, so they used to be for a publishing thing. I mean, that's how, before sort of globalization came along, before everyone started merging together and all the big companies started buying everyone up, that was kind of it. So I go in there and they offered me a job, and it wasn't much money or anything, but it was more than I was making, not making money. And as this industry wants to do, so right around the time they hired me, the reason they're hiring me is because they picked up the Reebok account. They picked up Reebok and Adidas.
Oh wow.
So they needed people to do entries and whatnot for them, and they must have thought I'd be a great fit because I didn't know what the hell an entry was. I didn't know what a 3461 was or 7501 or anything. And they immediately put me...
This was before 10+2 and everything, though, also, because you're talking
slightly.
early 2000s?
This was 2005, so it was December of 2005.
Right before then. Just immediately right before it started getting rolled out with some more stuff.
Yeah, okay. I remember when we had a forum on 10+2, we had someone from corporate come in and kind of educate us on what that was going to entail. I believe that was 2007. Yeah. And then we didn't see real enforcement until 2014. But that was kind of the beginning of it. And I did that there. So my background starts in operations. I was doing air and ocean entries for a footwear company. I learned footwear pretty well. I wanted to do some other stuff. I moved over to Drawback at FTN, and I got some experience doing that. An opportunity came up at Talbot's Import LLC. Talbot's is the clothing company, women's clothing company, right down the street here in Hingham.
Heck yeah.
We're recording in the Casa Dooley over here in Weymouth, Massachusetts.
South Weymouth. It's where it happens, baby. I like to call it the epicenter of transportation in New England.
Well, it is right now. You got two important people in the room. And by the way, if there's any audio issues with this or anything like that, you can blame me. That's 100% my fault. And if you're hearing a little bit of an echo or something, that's because I don't want to say we threw this thing together because we've been working on it for a while, but a bunch of our equipment came and we jumped the gun to start doing it, but we don't have we didn't have the actual microphone holders, so they're actually laying on a table in front of us, in front of this nice mixer and our laptop and everything. So the studio is still a little bit slapdash, but it is what it is. But so.
It works though because, and I think it's actually and this is advice that I throw to people all the time, unsolicited because nobody asks for my advice. But I tell, just do something. If you're not exactly sure where to start, just do something, and then at least you got a stake in the ground.
Sure.
Even if it's 100% wrong or 100% right, at least you've done something. Move forward. And I said the same thing to you probably, I don't know, a couple of months ago. I think we were grabbing lunch or something, and I said, you know what? Let's just, even if we have just the computer microphone, just record something and call that beta test whatever and roll with it. So I'm happy with it. Echo or no echo, the people can enjoy it.
Yeah, well, it's going to sound a lot better next week when we're able to hold it. But, you know, we're keeping it together here. And
Indeed.
Let me grab the balloon that's floating away. So Talbot's. So I went over to Talbot's. They had an opportunity to open up where I could work on their CT-PAT Tier 3 revalidation. I didn't know anything about CT-PAT, and they also wanted to do a bonded warehouse. I didn't know anything about a bonded warehouse either. I may have fudged that a little bit during my interview with those guys. And it actually turned out the guy was from New Zealand, so
there you go.
I was talking to him mostly about the haka. Because you know, when you can't BS your way through something, you know, you got to start finding people's touchstones. And this guy, he was from New Zealand. He was really into rugby.
Enjoys himself some rugby.
You know, and I knew about the haka from the stupidest thing: Real World Road Rules Challenge. They had done it in
really
that year. It was being done in New Zealand. And see, people can say what they want about junk television, but if it can get you a job, you know, the Real World.
It's done
Road
its
Rules
job.
Challenge helped get me a job. So, MTV, people can hate on you all they want. Not this guy. But you know what? So Talbot's, I was there for a bit. It was all right, but an opportunity again arose, and I wanted to learn more. And for a company called Vandegrift, they had a position open where they needed someone to do FDA fish entries. So I did that for about a year, learned that. Finally decided I kind of knew the industry enough, and I wanted to get over to sales. Switched over to a company called A.N. Deringer, Vermont-based, NVOCC, mostly known as a border broker. They have some stakes in the ground in Boston. But overall, you know, fairly decent place, pretty good. My market was in Boston, though, so when the opportunity did come around at Oceanair to be director of business development, a lot of my boxes were checked, so I decided to go over that for there. And now I'm here recording the shipping pod with you.
Nice.
And I think we touched on this a little bit, but, you know, the reason this came about is, you know, Oceanair. I had wanted to do it with them. I had mentioned it to you, the frustration. You said, well, you know, let's just do it. And to sort of define this thing to people who are going to listen, you know, Ryan and I are both in our, you know, mid-late 30s. We have come up through the system kind of, I mean, you had the schooling and everything, but when you get a job in this business, it's a bit trial by fire. Nobody knows, you know, what they're doing at first. This even with school, you still don't know about 3461's entries. You don't know, you may hear terms like TEUs. You're going to hear a lot of acronyms, but you don't know exactly maybe what they are, how to define them, how to find networking things, how to find other peers to sort of go. Because it was at the time, too, when I started in the business, and you started in the business not too long after, but when you're watching TV or you're talking to other people, you know, they're working at startups or they're working at things that just seem a lot more glamorous to make a movie about, right?
Interesting. Yep, you are correct. You are correct.
I mean, the gap in age, and again, we're no spring chickens, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm 37 years old. You're 35, and
on my license, when I talk to people, I state much younger.
Oh, you bring it down.
Oh, I absolutely. I bold-faced lie to people and tell them I'm in my late 20s.
Wow.
If I'm wearing a hat, I can pull it off, but the second I take my hat off, the receding hairline immediately eliminates any question, and they're like, oh, so you're like 40, right?
Yeah. You're like, no, I grew up under the power lines.
No, I just spend a lot of time in the sun. Thanks.
Yeah.
But all kidding aside, as you said, though, it's like, you're right. We're not spring chickens anymore.
Yeah.
And you touched on this, and before we go too far further, is I think one of the big things that we'll end up touching on this is it is a ridiculous age gap. People are either brand new and only have like a year or so into the business, or they're like 35-year vets.
Yeah.
There is not a whole ton of like 15-year veteran, 10 to 15-year veterans, which really make up, when you look at other organizations, like the people that I call customers, the major like BCOs or beneficial cargo owners, as we call them, take Hasbro, for instance. They're shipping toys all over the world. A lot of their management team is like 10 to 15-year experienced people. That's a good management team. We're missing that in our industry. And my real concern, I don't like to use the term because I feel like it's a little derogatory, but I mean it with all due respect, is someday the old guard's going to move on.
Yeah.
And we're not going to have enough people that can seamlessly step up. And I don't know what happens when the transportation industry has a rocky period, not because of financials, but because of lack of experience and lack of training people on how to make those relationships and how to build teams behind them and such like that. So
that's definitely true. And when I walked in the door at FedEx Trade Networks, I remember the first thing I was thinking is like, wow, the next closest person to my age, and I was 26 at the time, was, like 38 was someone like my age now.
Mm-hmm.
26, that guy's an ancient. I might as well be a dinosaur. But I think that, but I stuck with it. But I think that maybe a lot of college graduates, they come in through that door and they see that it's such an older crowd that they're not going to have a lot of fun at this workplace, especially when you're digesting, the TV and people on TV have sort of glamorous jobs as startups. Startups seem awesome, and there's no shortage of them in Cambridge or in Boston,
for sure,
or other jobs. And to be brutally honest about our industry, we've all been in a bunch of different brokers. We've been in the shipping businesses headquarters. They're not glamorous places to walk in on day one. Most of these buildings are they're as old as some of the oldest workers working in there, if not older. These are some of the oldest buildings by the airport in Boston.
And the other point that, not so much what you were saying, but to add on to that, is the transportation industry is not a sexy, flashy, it's not the cruise line industry.
Sure.
Cruise ships pull in, they're in the best spots, they get the prime parking. The actual cargo transportation industries, people don't want to see it.
Oh, yeah.
And as part of that, they put them in the, why don't we just say, either lesser developed or the less flashy parts of town. So if you're going to work there, they're going to want to, and a lot of times they're going to want to have the office close to the operation. And if it's close to the operation, you're kind of guaranteeing that you're not in the best part of town, and you're definitely not in the fun, young, urban, professional part of town.
Yeah.
You'll end up in East Boston,
Yeah.
right over by the oil tanks and stuff, right into Chelsea there.
Yeah, you got the Irving oil tanks over there. Your big perk is you can go to lunch at Kelly's Roast Beef.
There you go.
If those things check your boxes, then you're all set. Or, if you're really feeling a spendthrift, you can go to Santarpio's.
Exactly.
But
there you go.
don't bring the company card, because they only take cash there.
And I still don't understand that. I don't understand how anyone in this world is left that only takes cash. It's a problem. It's a problem in America today.
I would think, I was like, you don't even take, Squarespace, or what is it? No, that's a website design company. What is it, Foursquare?
I know the one you're talking about. It's going to bother me now.
Yeah, see, all the young people are laughing at us now, because we're,
Well, I just found out what Venmo was, like, a month ago.
That Venmo, that's for the music videos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so people aren't, like, uploading, like, their own versions of it. It's
Venmo's the PayPal, like, type thing. It's like the personal PayPal type deal.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Vimo.
Yeah.
Vimo, yeah, alright.
For a second, I was like, I'm like, oh, is it? Really? I'm like, wow, I'm totally off. I didn't even know that's what Venmo was. I thought it was the thing where I can pay you instead of giving you cash. I will Venmo you $10.
Man, when I went, Ed Kaplan over at Ocean Air, I went in there one day, and the guy's like, do you Snapchat? I was like, no. What's wrong with you?
Was he wearing clothes when he asked you this? Because I feel like this is going in a weird direction.
You know what? It turns out, like, Snapchat's like a legitimate thing now. Like, even on the news, they'll be like, check out our Snap. It's not just for sexting anymore. It's a legitimate
I'm not going to lie,
service, I guess.
That's somewhat unfortunate.
I
liked having one thing that was just for that, so...
Well, you can't just change it. It's very rare that you can repurpose something that has that stigma as, a sexting app into sort of like a dual-purpose Instagram social media type of hybrid.
Fair point.
Did not see it coming.
Good on Snapchat for being able to do that, because I feel like most of the applications go the other way. They start off legitimate and turn weird. You
would think so, right? You would think they would get weirder and weirder as you get more desperate and desperate. I know that personally that's what happened to me in life.
And I feel like this conversation alone is the one that demonstrates if this industry was in a need for young blood for no other reason than to explain some of the newer applications.
Well, I think that's a big... And I would, in my role as business as director of business development, one thing that I brought up, and I brought this up at Derringer as well, was a real need to service, because a lot of people, our business, especially on the broker side, is guilty of thinking that, well, we always did it this way, so this is the right way. I mean, we're in an industry that it took forever to get off faxes. I mean, there's still some truckers that do it; they're their own thing, but like, it wasn't until like 2010 that the people started scanning things, you know, and that became commonplace. And I realized that 7 years ago, but in 2010, you know, most people were on their computers. They weren't using fax machines. But and now I think that, you know, the smartphone has completely really replaced the personal computer. And we can't think like our industry. You can't think like you're the head of Yang Ming or you're the head of FedEx Trade Networks. You have to think of the person who is at a Hasbro. Who's on the go, who wants to look up their shipments and needs to be served via their phone or their iPad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'll take it a step further, is that in order to survive today in the transportation industry, is you don't have to just look at the Hasbro, because Hasbro's huge.
Yeah.
And so Hasbro's going to provide you with whatever they specifically need.
Yeah.
To be an active member in this industry, you have to be thinking about what the new player, what the startup in transportation is thinking of. Like, take, for instance, small 3PL. Maybe the guy only has a couple of accounts. If he can find a communication method that works well for all parties concerned and it's less labor intensive, that's the only way he's going to climb to the next level, or she's going to climb to the next level. The only way it's going to work is if they can be on the leading edge of technology with you. And I think kind of the broader thing to touch on there is you honestly have to be able to think of all avenues. And the only way to do that is to have these tools available to you. And the only way that you're aware of the tools available to you is to have the people that are up on the technology.
Well, I think one of the issues, too, is that, I'm not going to name the company, but I worked with a company who, they said, okay, we do realize that there's at least some need for technology. I mean, I think they all recognize that, but it's a business of kind of copycats. So you get the track and trace. Everyone's got, you know, access to documents now. And what they were trying to do is to bring some new tools in, but the thing in the industry is they only go halfway. They don't bring in IT people who are tech people. You know, they bring in guys who have the cheapest rate, and you're not going to get good tech people for that.
Yeah.
See, I know there's new softwares coming out to license them. We'll get into all that kind of stuff because we could probably go on forever on what tech is going on. But we'll definitely have an episode on that too, and hopefully get some of you know, the good players in that field in here to let, because again, our industry isn't one that really advertises either. So you don't. I mean, how many times have you said to someone what your job is, and they have no idea what it is? Even though if you go on 93, you're going to pass a ton of shipping containers. You see shipping containers, you know, in front of or behind every single store you shop at. Yet people, it's kind of like this hidden world. Shipping, it's kind of like a dirty secret.
Yeah.
And you always hear too, oh, that thing's made in China. And it's like a guy saying it who's like decked head to toe in stuff.
Yep.
from China. It's not really something we call our politicians on.
Yeah. It's
not something that lay people focus on. And again, to go back to sort of movies or culture, there's no real movies about our business. What is there, Captain Phillips?
Yeah. That is, I gotta tell you, that's one of the only ones that you can think of that actually people, like, that they were able to find someone of note with Tom Hanks to get in there and do that story. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. And just so we're clear, I was like, the pirate threat is very real, but that's a rarity.
Do you think that they offered that role to Marky because him and Hank seem to be in a competition for who can recreate the tragedies the most?
Glad you brought that up. I mean, for one, you are right. Recent historical tragedies, that's in both of their wheelhouses. However, funny reference though, you mentioned Mark. He is actually in the only other shipping movie that I can think of, and I'm blanking on the name, but it was like him and Giovanni Ribisi was in it, where they were smuggling into like the port of New Orleans or something.
Oh, yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
And I can't remember what the name of the movie was. I want to say it was called like Blind Run or something. Like it was something. It had a name that didn't apply to the shipping. Yeah. But it was like 19% on a boat and it was actually wildly inaccurate. Like none of the stuff that they did, like right down to the fact where they actually run into a dock and the guy's like, "Oh well, we need to get this ship off the dock in the next 6 hours." I'm like, no, you're gonna be laid up until we can get ABS inspectors down to prove that the ship can actually go back to sea. What are you talking about?
Yeah, And the thing, I haven't seen that one. No, I have seen that one. I saw parts of that one. I haven't seen the whole thing. And I haven't seen Deepwater Horizon. That's his, well, not his latest. That's actual latest one. He's doing back to back. He's got the Patriots Day.
You're right.
Too.
You're right. I forgot about Deepwater Horizon. I haven't seen that yet. I heard great things about it though.
It's on demand.
Oh, I'm going to have to seek it out. I had a buddy of mine, a classmate of mine actually, who was on the Deepwater Horizon.
Yeah.
And got off of it 2 days before the whole shebang.
Sometimes I don't get like the tragedy ones though. It's like, do I really want to eat popcorn, at Patriot Cinema over here in Hanover, watching Marky Mark, play cops and robbers trying to catch, Djako Sarnov and
oh, just to make my position very clear, I think it's in wildly poor taste that he made it this close to it too.
It really is.
I was like, dude, you gotta at least give it a decade, man, before you can do that.
Yeah, they played it here early, like it was some sort of gift to open it up in Boston to everyone here. And
hey, we just wanted to reactivate a lot of PTSD for a whole bunch of people.
yeah. So my wife and I, we were taking wedding dance. Adrienne Hazlitt, who's been around, she was our dance instructor, and she lost her foot in that tragedy.
Oh my God!
It's like, do I really need to see like an extra or a featured extra portray our instructor getting her leg blown off? And like, don't get me wrong, I know that they make like United 93, they make 9/11 movies. I guess time heals all wounds. This one's a little too close to home for me, so I don't think I'll be catching these marathon bombing movies.
No, I don't think so.
But at the same time, I wouldn't watch, I don't want to be a hypocrite, I wouldn't watch something like Deepwater Horizon and immediately be like, I don't know, personally affected again. That it starts to become a popcorn movie, which is, I guess, where Patriots Day unsettles me a bit from being here. So
yeah.
If you enjoy it, enjoy it. I'm not going to get preachy on it. Yeah. That's the other Tim Dooner, the Presbyterian. So I won't preach about it, but...
we should send him an email and be like, hey, can you weigh in on this real quick?
We can get him on. We'll get him on Skype, and we'll ask him to just give some opinions on things that I have.
And there's a billion Ryan Dooleys. That's what we should do. Every once in a while, we should just bring in one of our named doppelgangers.
Yeah.
Be like, hey,
and then you
thoughts.
Can bring in like your girlfriend. I'll bring in my wife, and we can see if they can guess which Tim Dooner said it or which Ryan Dooley said it. It's going to be a game.
I feel that I'm a man of unique perspective, so I think it'll be a dead giveaway, but I'm very interested to see how that plays out. But circling back to things, though.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on this. One of the things, I don't know if it's on the actual the skeleton that we have here, but I think one of the things that we really want to do is we really want to involve some of our Connect friends and our Connect young professionals specifically.
Sure.
And as part of that, I thought we had touched on it before, maybe a quick nod as to what Connect actually is.
Yeah, well, go ahead, because you're in the CYP, so you're officially a part of the organization, so you might have a little bit more leeway to speak.
I'm actually officially the chairperson of the Connect Young Professionals.
You are. So
I am the most young professional there is. I'm the youngest and professionalist young professional.
It's all in a name.
Indeed. So, Connect being the Coalition of New England Companies for Trade, it's a networking group. It's also a lobbying group. It has a lot of different aspects to it. The organization puts on several different symposiums throughout the year, and Tim, you'll touch on that, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But the crux of the organization is networking. It puts more or less, it's a little broad to say this, but it puts all of the key players for the New England transportation market, everything I'd say pretty much north of Connecticut, in one room at the same time at least twice a year. And that's good for someone like my role where I need to speak to these people and have to have face-to-face relationships with them. It makes my life a whole lot easier is that if you can't get someone or you're struggling to get someone that you can connect with, you can always count on yourself to be able to be in the same room with them.
Sure.
Taking it a step further, though, the Connect group, and I think it was a very wise decision for them to make, decided to create something called the Connect Young Professionals. My understanding, and I don't know this for a fact, but I've been told this, it's a little bit rumor, is that it was the brainchild of a gentleman named Peter Deem, who's no longer in country. He has actually immigrated back to Germany with his company, not his company, but the company he works for, Nora Floors. They brought him back home to be the global compliance manager. Pretty big deal.
Great guy. Hi, Peter.
Oh, yeah, Peter. Come on back, sir. Guten Tag.
Yeah.
And it was Peter Deem's brainchild, I believe, and his number two, who ended up assuming his role here in the U.S., James McCarthy, started it off as the first chairperson and liaison to Connect. And they brought together a whole group of us that were everyone that was 35 years and younger, I believe, is what the break was. we were all able to kind of have our own little segment there where we could do some more social networking and some charity events and try to...
I believe it was 34, my friend.
34?
Yeah, because I remember I had asked them about it, and I was just turning like 35 or something, and at the time they were, I guess, a little bit more stringent. Maybe they had a different chair in there who didn't want...
Maybe there was some opposition research going on that they were like,
I don't know.
What if the Presbyterian Tim Dooner had a hand in this?
Well,
Ooh.
actually, you know what happened at the time? It was kind of interesting to me because the CYPs kind of fell apart anyway for a little while. They kind of went dormant. You know, they had they had a couple like events here and there, but it hasn't really had a ton of structure. It's sort of been almost its namesake. It's been kind of young and flaky. It hasn't been put together, and I guess you're there now to try and change it.
Trying to grab hold of the helm and take it home, baby.
Yeah, I'm not a part of the CYPs, but just to touch on Connect here is I've always found them to be a great resource, not just for the current job you're in, but just if you're going to be in this industry, it's not huge, and if you're in the New England area, Connect's a great thing to get involved in because you're going to have about 100 of the top name importers there. You're going to have access to them, as most people there are pretty nice. You're going to get some good seminars. You're going to get some good information out of it, and it's usually a pretty fun time. I met my podcast co-host via Connect.
Exactly, and I think you touch on the real key point is that it's good to know people in this business, because the funny thing is, and it's part of what you touched on before. There is, it's kind of a dirty secret, the transportation industry. If you aren't part of it, you won't really know who to go. And I mean, isn't that one of the biggest challenges? It's really the whole expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That seems like everyone says, oh yeah, that's like a patronage thing. Like, oh, if it's not about what you know, it's who you know. No, it's not about what you know. If you don't know the people in the industry, what good is what you know? You have to know the people.
Absolutely.
And so I'm a huge proponent of networking just in general. Connect affords you with that. But their information sessions, I mean, the panels that they do, fantastic, specifically for the younger people in the business. If you're new to the market or new to the business as a whole, the information sessions, invaluable. Because you have key people talking about key elements of the day. When it was Hurricane Sandy, everything was about Hurricane Sandy. More recently, it was about the current economic strife that the industry is facing. I mean, it's very topical. It's to the point. It's on point. I mean, maybe for some of the older people or some of the people that have been longer in the business, like even now I'm getting to a point where I don't need to attend all the panels because I'm like, well, they're going to talk about stuff that I talk about regularly now. But, I mean, that's a pretty great thing, though, to be able to start from I know nothing to I now know what I need to know type of thing. I mean, that's really the name of the game.
I think socially it helps quite a bit, too. I mean, we touched on a little bit earlier walking into some of these brokerage firms in our area in Boston, and I'm not exactly what the pulse of the rest of the country is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are listening elsewhere, please feel free to chime in and let us know kind of what the situation is over in your area. We hope to get out to everyone's way eventually. Right
Absolutely.
Now we're in Weymouth, but for us, though, socially, it's kind of a great thing because you'd walk into this office in Boston, and the next closest person your age was 12, 13 years old. You had a lot of people who were just 9-to-5ers, right? They would just come in, punch the clock.
Yes, sir.
I'm not even sure why they did the job. And at 26 too, I was still, full of piss and vinegar and still pretty naive. And I was really into it. I'm like, why would I do this job if I didn't want to learn something?
Yeah.
And especially early on, that's why I kept moving departments and just kept acquiring knowledge. But I was noticing a lot of other people around me weren't doing that, and that can be discouraged when you're in an environment and you're not seeing, your peers being as competitive, or maybe you don't even have peers.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really even have. I had peers on the job, but not peers in age. And when you get over to Connect, there's the CYPs, but you're also going to meet a lot of people who had a lot of industry knowledge. They've been there for a while. They're pretty open with people, and you get to kind of see, I guess, how the other half lives that are really interested in being a part of the business.
Sure. And I think, in addition to that, and this might just be my own personal take on it, but from a social aspect, if you came into a company and there was 4 people your age, the most likely scenario is that you're going to hang out and socialize with the people your age. You're probably not going to walk up to someone who's 20 years your senior and necessarily say, hey, you want to go grab a beer or something like that. You put yourself into an organization like Connect, and you see the people that are 20, 30 years your senior hanging out with their counterparts, and it breaks down that kind of institutional intimidation. It breaks down the idea that it's like, okay, maybe he is the 20-year veteran VP or director of whatever, and I'm just an entry analyst. If you run into each other at Connect, it's nothing to sit down and say, hey, that was an interesting panel, or hey, you want to grab a drink over here during the next cocktail hour type thing. I mean, it's an open forum that you get to talk to these people, and it breaks down a little bit of that stigma. And I think that's important because then when you go back to the office, maintaining professionalism is always important, but it affords you a connection. It affords you an opportunity to have a more personal, outside of the business relationship with people that you wouldn't necessarily encounter. And I think that's extremely valuable in my opinion.
Sure. And this is probably applicable beyond our own industry. I mean, to everybody, networking has got to be a fantastic thing to sort of socialize, not just keep it to LinkedIn. You actually kind of have to go out there and meet some people and rub some elbows. And, as much as we like to say it, I mean, there's still deals that are done on bar napkins.
I love that. I got to tell you, I was like, I wish we could bring that back. Doing the stuff straight by the book, black and white, and stuff like that, frankly, it's boring. And you don't need people to do that one. I love the bar napkin deal.
Sure. Well, there might be now there might be the bar napkin, then 4 lawyers who get involved and go over the contract, and you're fighting over, nickels on a TEU.
I have an image in my head of someone having a 300-page contract with a bar napkin stapled to the back of it. Like,
this is the
start. This clause is important.
Yeah. This is the...
That'll be a lovely one.
No, yeah, but it makes sense. And it's a great resource out there. We're going to hopefully have some of the Connect people on here, maybe even record live from an event, do something to that thing. They're not affiliated with the show in any way. Just Ryan happens to be a part of their group, and I've kind of grown up through their system. And one of the things we kind of want to do here, too, is have a little bit of an events calendar for people. I know that we're Boston-based, so don't feel too alienated if you're listening from the other side of the country or even New York. Always feel free to come down. And we'll probably expand a little bit more and touch all aspects of global trade. That's really our goal. But you're going to hear some Boston-specific stuff on there just by nature of where our boots are on the ground. And that kind of gives a little segue here. I mean, since we brought Connect up, we're going to talk about the forecast, but I think that could go a little long, so maybe we'll save the forecast for the next one. I mean, we're kind of at 51 minutes here.
Yeah, we don't want to. That deserves to get its fair due time. So
yeah, I think that's kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
So let's do it. Let's go over some upcoming events. We've got. Let's see. Coming up on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
We have the Import Seminar. It's going to be on biotech, pharma, and med. It's run by Connect. It's at the Pine Conference Center, Southborough, Massachusetts. 9 to 5. I'm not sure if there's a reception or anything after that. The Connect website doesn't have any data towards that. Usually if they don't say anything, there isn't.
Yeah, and what's that one? And what is that symposium for again? Or, seminar again? What?
Open your ears, man. It's the Import Seminar for biotech, pharma, and med.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's very specific.
I got hung up when you said the Pine Center, and I started thinking, I'm like, where's the Pine Center?
Yeah, right over
and then I realized I was like, I'm not. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, Pine Street Inn. I'm like, that's a halfway house or something.
They're gonna have a cot for me over there.
Okay. Anyways, my bad.
No, so it's an Import Seminar. It's biotech, pharma, med. I'll try and get some more info on this. Connect just kind of had a brief overview. I don't even know how much it costs. It's a Pine Conference Center in Southborough, Mass. Coming up a couple weeks later. This one might be pretty interesting. I went to this last year. February 28th, they have the 23rd Annual International Business Forum and Networking Event. That goes from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Morgan Lewis in Boston.
Ah, that's the one you were telling me about. I've never attended, but that's the one you were telling me about, that you ran into some interesting characters.
Yeah, so let me give a little primer to this one so you can judge if it would be worth it for you to go if you're listening or not. Because, when I went from the sales perspective, at an NVOCC, I was looking to pick up import-export clients. That was my business there. What was there was kind of a lot of airlines and embassy people.
Yeah.
Met a very lovely lady from the Polish embassy. But in terms of for direct sales, probably one you could skip. But if you're interested in just kind of, they do have a few speakers there.
Wasn't that the one? some start. Who was the one you ended up meeting someone that was a startup, right?
Yeah, that was at Royal. Those are fun. I'll list some of those coming up soon. Those
okay.
startup
Sorry, I thought I was separate.
No,
separate
this is a little bit more stuffy. This is they have it in the top of a lawyer's building and.
Gotcha.
I believe you might be interested. They had an open bar. They had that going for them.
Well, frankly, I'm in.
And they had finger foods and wine and beer. And they did have some craft cocktails. They had some craft beers there too. So it wasn't just what's a cheap wine? I can't even think of one.
Some Franzia?
No, what's the one that comes in the
some Boons?
What's the one that you buy if like someone tells you to get wine but you don't really like them and it's like a $1.75 and you don't really know why it's like $12.
I have no
Fox Knob Creek or something.
There you go. I
think
hope
I'm
that's
naming a
if
couple.
that's not the name.
Yellowtail. That's the one.
Really? I like Yellowtail.
See?
Yeah.
But you're not a man for wine, are you?
Isn't that Greg Norman's?
Is it Greg Norman's?
Yeah, it's Greg Norman, the golfers.
It's Australian, I know that much.
Yeah, this is Greg Norman.
Do they drink it there? Because I know like Foster's, they don't drink Foster's in Australia.
You know what? I'm going to call Greg Norman.
It's always like, like in Boston, most people don't really drink Sam Adams, especially like beer drinkers. Like if you're going, like this weekend, if you were going over to someone's house, what are the chances at the Pats game they're going to have a 30-pack of Bud Light or they're going to have Sam Adams? I'm going with the 30-pack of Bud Light.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can guarantee a 30-pack of Bud Light or Coors Light or Miller Lite. You're going to have one of the key...
You're going to see those.
Yeah. But when it goes to... If anyone around here... You make a very good point, and I made a joke about this on another podcast that I'm a part of. The only people from Boston that I see drinking Sam most of the time is people that never drink craft beer.
Yeah.
People that only drink Miller Lite. When they want to have a craft beer, they're like, I'll go Sam.
Sure.
And I honestly think it's a name recognition thing that they're like, oh yeah, that one.
Well, even like, so my wife's, my father-in-law, my wife's dad, he drinks Sam Adams. Like, he's the kind of guy who would go to like a pub in Boston and order a clam chowder and a Sam Adams. Because he's in Connecticut. He's not from Boston.
That's wildly Bostonian.
I think that's 90% of the Sam Adams sold in downtown Boston is by people who aren't from Boston buying beer. Sorry, Boston Beer Company. Don't mean to stroke you the wrong way. I like some of your other stuff. Well, I used to, but
don't get me wrong. Their Rebel IPA, I stand by their Rebel IPA.
You know which one they used to at the Improv Asylum? They used to have like a Brick Red. You ever have the Sam Brick Red?
Yeah,
that one's pretty good.
Yeah,
because it doesn't taste like Sam Adams. No,
I got to tell you, I have no problem with the taste of Sam Adams. It's just not my go-to. I like some of their other ones because they're a little more. The only way I describe it is a little more punch to the mouth. It's a little more like hoppy or spicy or whatever you want to call it. I mean, just pop to the mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has a distinct flavor, especially the original. And then the light has it's like the regular one with a little bit of water in it. But speaking of that, this weekend.
Speaking of this weekend.
Yeah, who you got?
The Patriots.
Yeah.
I felt like it was like a trick question. I was trying to think. I'm like, is there something tricky I should know about this?
There's two. Yeah. Well, let's do it with the spread. It's Patriots minus 5.5. So, is that going to sway you at all?
No. I think they'll cover. The Pats are going to do well.
I'm going to go Patriots, 23.
Okay.
Steelers, 20. So if we're doing the spread...
So then they don't cover.
If we're doing the spread, I'm taking the Steelers.
Ooh, interesting. I think they're going to do well. I don't like to throw the actual numbers at it because I'm like, I feel like if they only score 14, then they could hold the Steelers to like 3. If they score 28, then they're probably going to give up a touchdown or two. So I'm actually going to do... Here you go. I'm going to go 28-17. That's what I'm going to go. 28-17.
I think it would be impossible to do that by all field goals. So someone's going to have to score other than Boswell, right?
Yeah.
Because he was all field. He was all leg last week.
I feel like the Pats' defense has made me nervous, although they really stepped it up last week.
Yeah.
I feel like I have ultra confidence in the offense, even though they crapped the bed last week. So I feel like everybody's done a little something, but I feel like this week they're going to come in there and just everyone's going to tighten it up. For one game, they can all tighten it up, and then they get that 2-week break before they go to the... Don't want to make a foregone conclusion, but before they hopefully go to the championship, I want to see that.
I mean, the key is pretty much if they can keep Bell in check, then they'll probably be fine. Then I didn't mean that to be a pun. Bell
I was gonna say it took me a second to catch that, and I was like, yeah, Le'Veon, yeah.
Le'Veon gotcha. Bell in check, not Bell in check.
I will say one of the kickers though will be the health because there was a couple of injuries, so I left in the third quarter from last week's game. we had a little bit of a drive home, and we were like, okay, it's over, let's go home. I didn't realize there was a couple of injuries, and I didn't realize they're all banged up now, and we're getting down to that point. If you remember, was it last year where they went into Denver and like they had like one offensive weapon? I forget. I think Edelman had gotten injured again, and Amendola was. I mean, I honestly don't even remember who was playing at that point. But I just feel like this one, I'm like, if people can stay healthy for one more game, they'll be good to go.
And well, then who are they going to play? So you got Green Bay at Atlanta, minus 3.5.
Green Bay at Atlanta.
Atlanta's favorite. They played, just to give you a little background, they played in October.
Aaron Rodgers is on fire right now.
Atlanta won 33-32, but that was before the team went on fire, right? Yeah. I'm with you. I'm going...
Rodgers is on fire.
I'm going with Rodgers.
Plus, he's dating Olivia Moon, and I got to tell you, he is. Everything's coming up Aaron Rodgers these days.
And I'm taking the spread, so I'll take him plus 3.5.
I'll take him. I'll take him as well, sir.
We missed one event. And this is probably you and I's favorite event of the year.
I didn't think we missed it. I thought you were holding it till the end as a ta-da.
Well, no, we kind of went off on a tangent a little bit over there.
Indeed.
But to reel it back in, so April 11th is the 21st annual Northeast Trade and Transportation Show.
The T&T.
Yeah, that's known colloquially as the TNT amongst regulars.
Mm-hmm. Is it in? Have you seen yet? Is it in Goat Island again, or is it at the one it was last year?
Let's see here. So it is at Gurney's Newport Resort and Marina, which used to be the Hyatt.
Okay, so that's the one it was at this past year.
Were we at the Hyatt last year?
Yeah.
That's where it was? Okay, so it is.
Great function.
Is a better facility. I'm thinking you and I was opinion the other one.
Oh, yeah.
Because the other place is across a bridge, and it's always like wicked windy and cold. Even when it's nice out that time of year, it's still wicked windy and cold.
I gotta say, you can't go wrong at that function. Can't say enough. Carol Turner, if you guys... And I wanted to double check and make sure. If anyone's curious about this, www.connect.org. Check it out. That way you can look it up. Carol Turner. You can feel free to reference Tim or myself if you email her, and her email's on there and stuff. I mean, they put on a fantastic show. Even the one that was over there. Albeit I prefer the one that's not over the bridge. The Hyatt is the better one. Because if you want to go to lunch or something in the middle of the day, if you want to step out, you can do it pretty easily. I mean, you and I got lost going to lunch somehow, but...
Yeah, we were trying to find this mythical burger place, and it doesn't... We had 2 different GPSs, we had local help, and we still couldn't find this damn burger place. We finally settled down in some other, nondescript Irish pub that was across the street. It ended up having a nice patio, though, remember?
It did. It had a lovely patio.
And it was just us in there. It was empty in downtown Newport.
Yes, sir.
And so that place wasn't terrible. It wasn't the burger place, but the second we sat down, the guy poured our beer, she's like, "Oh, that burger place is like right across the street."
Yeah, it's like you're looking at it.
And then we stumbled out of there later on, and we're looking, and we still couldn't find. We still have no idea where that place is.
I've been to Newport 6 times since then, I think, and I still haven't found it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not a big area that it's in, and one day we're gonna find it.
Maybe we'll even record live from there. We'll put our flag on the table and be like, we are recording live from this mythical burger place we've tried so hard to find. But Connect. The reason why I think that Ryan and I both like that one is it's a 3-day event, so it goes the 11th, the 12th, the 13th. That does seem a little long and daunting. A lot of people do kind of sneak out that 3rd day a little bit early.
Oh yeah, I do.
They they have nighttime things for people involved. So basically, you're at the symposium all day. It goes from I believe 8 till like 5, and then half hour later they've already got trolleys out there for the next hour to shuttle you out to. Usually the first night it'll be slightly less nice, like just kind of a bar, a little bit more casual type of place.
I have never been to the first night's affair.
Really?
I've been the first day.
Yeah.
And then I haven't attended the evening thing. Like there's been times where I've had to come back for something else.
Yeah.
And then you go to the dinner. But I've never been to the first night's thing. I didn't even know, to tell you the truth, off the top of my head, I don't know if I knew that there was a function the first evening.
Oh, so
right now.
Yeah, absolutely there is, and it's usually sponsored by one of the brokers. It's open bar, open appetizers.
Well, what am I doing?
Well, you would like it too, because you don't get, it's like finger foods. It's the kind of thing where most people end up having to usually eat afterwards, because how many cold French fries can you eat?
Yeah.
But you do get to network a lot of people. it actually tends to get a little bit sloppy because people are only eating the finger foods.
That's the tale of the industry.
Yeah, but then the next night you get to go to, they'll always pick out some lovely mansion.
Oh yeah.
In Newport, Rhode Island, at one of the famous estates over there. Every year I've been, it's been different. It's been a different place, but they're all equally beautiful.
Absolutely.
And that's that dinner. They have different tiers of packages. You can look at it on the website, which, as Ryan said, was www.conect.org.
Yes.
Right? Connect.org?
Yep, you were correct.
Mention the shipping pod,
Yeah.
or Ryan or Tim. Maybe they'll give you a discount. We haven't really worked out anything with them, but either way, so tell them we sent you.
If they give you a discount, you tell us how you got it, because that is coveted. That is a coveted skill, to be able to get a discount.
Yeah, you'd be like the first person to get a discount or money back from Connect. With all due respect, Carol. We love
Absolutely.
You. So that's that. Those are the events coming up. We're going to look up for some
If
more
I can
stuff.
add one more, too.
Yeah, you know something?
I do. There's one more, and I wouldn't call it an event because it's something we haven't even scouted yet, but it's something that I'm going to be doing with the CYPs, or loosely affiliated with the CYPs. It's the MIT Scale event, which is put on by the MIT Supply Chain Logistics Program.
Okay.
They have an industry event going on, and I believe it is... Let me check the date real quick here. That is going to be on the 25th, January 25th, so it's next week. And it's over at the MIT campus. I don't have the building off the top, but you can look it up. Anyone can Google it there, the MIT Scale program.
Main campus.
Yes.
There's also some exciting things to check over at MIT when you're over there as well.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I wish I had known more about their supply chain program. I may have pursued in my earlier, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I might have actually pursued an advanced degree out of MIT, if for no other reason to say that I went to MIT, and I already would know, I don't have that level of mathematical background, I don't think, to go to MIT, but I feel like I have that level of supply chain background to go to MIT.
It's never too late to change, Ryan.
Hey, it's never too late, baby.
Well, and you know what? A buddy of mine growing up, and I'm not going to name his name, but this is one of the kids I hung out with as a preteen.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a spaz and a moron, but for some reason I was thinking about him the other day, and I decided to Google him. The guy is a PhD now.
There you go.
How did he become a PhD?
Hey, I gotta tell you, there is absolutely, in my opinion, there is no indication, how you are as a youth or even outwardly, that lines up with your academic prowess. Because the amount of people that I know, similar to what you're saying, that if you were to tell me that they were going to have a PhD or an MD, I would have told you were full of nonsense. There's no way these people... And I got to tell you, all the power to them. They're still nutbags. They're still, when you run into them and you have a beer with them, they're still crazy.
Yeah.
Which you're like, wow, you are a wildly successful individual.
Yeah, no, I was I was impressed. You made it a long way since the days when we were playing, Super Mario World on your Super Nintendo in the basement.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, no hate. Good to hear that he's doing fine. So that's that event. Did you have anything else? I know we're gonna keep adding things to the calendar.
Yeah.
Kind of what we want this to do is to we're basically making a resource that we kind of wish we had when we were coming up, and hopefully just kind of grow this organism from there.
Yeah.
We're gonna delve into deeper topics next time. Next week we should be talking about the forecast. We might have a special guest on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can get Haynes for that. He'll be here one of these days, but
we may be able to. He has a studio built into his house.
Yeah.
Called Happy Endings, an actual bar that he built.
There you go.
That works as a perfect studio.
That would be great. I wonder if it's going to have the the same homey quality that we have in here with the echo.
I don't think so. I don't think I like to think of my establishment here as unique, so I don't think he'll have that. But he has his own special brand of British enlightenment in the industry.
Yeah, and he's with IMSkip. He's a great gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
He attends Connect events too.
Indeed. Well, he's been a freaking leader of companies all up and down the East Coast and internationally. So he's with IMSkip now, and I don't want to speak too much of it because his version of the story is far more interesting than I could say. But if I may add one more thing to yours, is that I'd say, it'll be a really cool thing for people to be able to utilize this to get their interest piqued on events such that we brought up here. So again, give us the contact.
Yeah, if you have any event coming up, it doesn't matter if you're not in Boston, wherever it is, shipping related, throughout the world. I mean, if the calendar gets crazy, obviously not, but it's wide open right now. You can hit us up at theshippingpod@gmail.com or on Twitter at theshippingpod.
The Shipping Pod.
The Shipping Pod.
I'd say if you have any questions about it, if you hear an event here and you're interested and you want to try, because one of the things that we're doing as part of the networking, like I said, I'm doing this MIT scale one. I have no background on it. It was floated to me. I thought it was a good opportunity to go scout it out. We've got a couple of us. We get together beforehand. That way we can all kind of, not necessarily carpool, but everyone can get there and kind of walk in together. So it kind of diffuses a little bit of that possible intimidation you might have. I mean, frankly, I'm rarely ever intimidated, but that's because I have an over-enhanced sense of self-worth. So I proudly stride into those things. But hey.
Oh, before we go, I don't think we asked, or if you said, maybe I missed it, but one more time. How would someone sign up for this event?
You know what? I got to tell you, I think we'll have to tweet that out. We'll have to put that on our Twitter because I went through it through the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, the CSCMP.
Okay.
And that's how I was able to. But there's multiple ways that you can sign up for it, and I don't know what the best one would be if you're not already a member of that.
All right. Well, Ryan will find that out for us, and in the episode description, I'll put down these events listed for you, so you guys can go look them up. You don't have to write this down.
And will you tweet the deets?
I will tweet the details.
Tweet the deets.
I need some things to tweet. And again, come back to us. Any questions about shipping, feel free to reach out. Ryan, I think that's about it for episode 1. I think we've given them enough of us too.
I think they can always get more, but I think for right now you're right. I think that might be it. And what we're gonna have to do though is we're gonna have to come up with a very cool signature, a sign off, as it were.
Maybe that could be it. It could just be us coming up with one.
There you go. We'll just try different ones every week. So this is Ryan Dooley signing off.
Well, you're supposed to say, and this here's Ryan Dooley signing off for Tim Dooner and Ryan Dooley.
Oh, okay. Oh, you do it then. You do it. You do the official one then.
This is Tim Dooner signing off on behalf of Ryan Dooley and the Shipping Pod. Catch you next week.
Every day that passes is a day that I get closer to seeing you again. We miss you, babe.